H.P. Lovecraft said the most merciful thing in the world is the inability of the human mind to correlate all of its contents. And I did some correlating of the contents of my mind. I always kind of joked that the agricultural revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race, alluding to the Unabomber who said it was the Industrial Revolution. And, maybe it's madness to connect those two, but maybe it's not. Maybe it is a verifiable technological leap that is one of the most impactful things that humans have ever done. So what I think is startling is we as humans have lived on Earth for 300,000 years. And we've been doing agriculture for about 7,000 or 6,000. Now, I know that people have a hard time wrapping their head around large numbers. Once it gets over 10,000, people start really losing count of things. And so the difference between these two numbers is it's substantial. We're looking at about 6,000 ish being 2% of 300,000, and that's kind of when it was in the end stages of the agricultural revolution, really taking its roots and planting itself as being fulfilled almost. What I think is interesting though is if we take that same 2% ish number, 2%, 3%, maybe a little lower, we find ourselves 2% of time having elapsed since the Industrial Revolution is it's also 2% from the Agricultural Revolution to the Industrial Revolution. From my stance, my point in time, it's also about 2%. So now we have AI, and it's not something that I'm embracing at all. I'm really seeing it as the new Industrial Revolution, that it's just going to cause suffering and a disparity between people. And it was the same way with the Industrial Revolution. It caused disparity. It had all the same markers as the AI revolution that we're seeing now. And so I think it's interesting that this timeline seems to line up with the agricultural revolution, because in the agricultural revolution we see a bottleneck in genetics where only 2%, coincidentally enough, only 2% of people in the world were males. We see this giant bottleneck in the Y chromosome because people would they would be planting crops and they want to defend these crops, and this leads to war. The first time we see something that even resembles modern war is over agriculture, aggregable land, and so they would kill every single male. And I can only imagine that this technological leap that was, 50 times back in 300,000 years ago, when we first see the rise of modern humans, that was the, maybe not the exact same way, but the biological leap that we undertook would have been the same. And so it all kind of plays out here. And it kind of gets into what Terence McKenna was saying when he said that things would get weird, and they would continue to get weird, and the weirdness would accelerate. Because once we get to the 2% of time to the AI jump, then we start working in really short increments. So short that it would almost be more reasonable to assume that something like the Industrial Revolution will almost pale in comparison to something like the leap to modern humans 300,000 years ago. When we put it into comparison with what AI will become, and someone looking way far into the past from the future will look at AI as being what was actually being created instead of the Industrial Revolution. We only consider the Industrial Revolution as being important now because of our perspective, but they might see it as the leap to biological humanity, AI, and then something even more. But again, this might just be because I'm looking at it temporally from my point of view in time, that I'm seeing it this way. So those are kind of some of my thoughts about these revolutions we've had throughout humanity. Thank you for watching. My name is Moles in Rome.